Have you guys heard about Dark Brandon Rising? I mean, it's everywhere right now. It's all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. I mean, all of these social media platforms, you're seeing images of Joe Biden with like laser eyes and orders to round up his political opponents, and he's projecting this position of strength over a world that he's manipulating from behind the scenes. It's not really the way traditionally Democrats or left-wing politicians have been portrayed by their supporters, and it's most certainly not the way Joe Biden has historically been portrayed. But this meme is everywhere now. Dark Brandon, I mean, is not only on social media, but is also being covered on The Daily Beast, Fox News, The Washington Post, Politico, The Hill, and Fox News Primetime, where it received an interesting reaction, to say the least.
Here, the Dark Brandon reaction after the White House tries to rebrand the president. Cringe taken to a new level? Definitely.
Where they, just called it cringe, feeling that, old people, once again, are not understanding internet culture. Ben Shapiro actually reacted to the Dark Brandon memes that are everywhere with a message of, "You can try to Dark Brandon meme your way out of a sub 40 approval rating all you want, but throwing hundreds of billions at green boondoggles," I never hear the word boondoggle anymore, "in the middle of an inflationary spiral isn't going to turn things around." Now, I want to get into how this Dark Brandon meme came out of nowhere and why it's so effective, and even many of Biden's left-wing critics are adapting it, and Biden's biggest supporters, because this actually got tweeted out. A Dark Brandon meme got tweeted out by Andrew Bates, who's the deputy White House press secretary, for God's sakes. So it's being adopted by everyone. But before we get at all diving into like the history of Dark Brandon and why it's succeeding so well in this moment, and how Biden may have captured the moment in this one instance, in part by using the Dark Brandon meme, and this could be the start of the big turnaround for Joe Biden, and I mean that unironically to some degree, I do want to respond to the accusations of cringe from Fox News and the accusations of unfunniness from conservative commentators. I'm hearing this from the same people who posted images of Donald Trump shirtless with boxing gloves on, and Donald Trump shirtless and with a Rambo machine gun and ready to take on the world. A lot of pictures of Donald Trump specifically shirtless, pictures of Donald Trump on top of tanks or big, or reposting of that footage from Italy, which was satirical, by the way, but they reposted it in a non-satirical manner, of Donald Trump's 40 to 50 foot recreation of him as the God Emperor of Man from Warhammer 40K. Real footage from Italy, by the way. This was from 2017. A lot of people have forgotten about it. I am not going to hear from the same people who reposted all of that this is cringe. I'm also not going to hear from the same people who possibly are not actually big Donald Trump supporters, but might be more establishment GOP, if you want to call them rhinos, using a term that the Trump Republicans like to throw at them all the time, who, for example, went in on the Cocaine Mitch thing. For those of you who don't know, Mitch McConnell actually sold shirts with his face covered in cocaine because he was accused by a Republican dissenter of his of him being involved in cocaine smuggling. Nothing ever came of it. He was not involved in cocaine smuggling, but they leaned hard into the Cocaine Mitch stuff and actually was able to raise $70,000 by selling shirts of his face covered in cocaine. So I'm not going to hear from these people that, oh, how cringe this is, when you're going to engage in the same behavior yourself. We're having fun. Let us have fun. So what is Dark Brandon? Before we get into the politics of Dark Brandon and how it might actually have an effect. So Dark Brandon is a combination of two things. The dark part actually is a reference to Dark MAGA, which is this idea that one day Donald Trump's wing of the party is going to take over again, take over the presidency, take over the House, take over the Senate, and they're going to dominate. It was coined by Representative Madison Cawthorn as he lost his election and was kicked out of office after, dragging the Republican Party into scandal so many times they had to do away with him, and they campaigned against him hard, releasing any evidence they could of his wrongdoing publicly, whether it be his homoerotic adventures or financial troubles that he had with his campaign. He's also having financial troubles after the campaign because he apparently used some campaign funds illegally and now is in, I think, thousands of dollars in debt, tens of thousands possibly. But that's the dark part of it. It's a reference to the Madison Cawthorn term of dark MAGA. And the Brandon part is a reference to the Let's Go Brandon chant, which originated at a NASCAR rally, which became a coded insult for Joe Biden because at the rally, they were chanting "F Joe Biden," and one of the NASCAR presenters interpreted it as, "Oh, let's go Brandon." It was a cheer for one of the NASCAR drivers, and then it became a coded insult for Joe Biden. So it's a combination of these two things, almost a neutralization of the "let's go Brandon" insult in a way. And so that's where the core of it lies. But what about Dark Brandon itself? What does Dark Brandon represent to the Dark Brandon shit posters everywhere? Well, first off, it's really, really funny to see a guy who's constantly called Sleepy Joe and presented in kind of stumbling around, fumbling on his words, kind of maybe not aware of what's going on around him, falling off of his bike, trying to shake the hands of people who aren't there. That's the way he's presented. That's the way he's clip-chimped, if we're going to use a Twitch term. And so to have somebody who has that public image right now, whether it's deserved or not, and presenting him as almost like this mafia kingpin of political power, he's going to go after his political enemies and pursue his political goals with ferocity and force that nobody can stop. To present him in that way with laser eyes is quite funny. It's ironic, and I think that's where a lot of the posting originally came from. It came from irony. It came from the idea of a lot of his left-wing detractors presenting him in this kind of god-like status. Made it funny. Which also plays into a sub-point that I want to talk about quickly, which is the fact that this type of jokery, either for or semi-for Joe Biden, has never really happened before. There's not really been any big internet moments for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has generally been somebody who has stayed off of the internet and has not marketed much online when it comes to like meme culture and internet culture. There was actually a private slogan repeated by many of the people in the Biden campaign in 2020, which was our not official campaign slogan is Twitter is not a real place. They knew that their main audience wasn't going to be on social media, wasn't going to be on Twitter. It was going to be at traditional DNC committee hearings. It was going to be in the suburbs. It was going to be in the moderates of the party. And it's going to be for the moderate centrists. That's going to be their key demographic. And these are not the people that are overly represented on platforms like Twitter, where political vitriol is spat regularly. And so they largely ignored that online kind of, confrontation on Twitter, or that online marketing on Twitter. I think it was actually said by somebody who was a staffer for one of his political opponents during the 2020 midterms. A Democratic operative who was who worked for a rival primary candidate in 2020 said that the Biden campaign never had a kind of breakout online moment that nearly every other leading contender did. It was all about beating Trump for him, not loving Biden, the operative said. Now, Dark Brandon is the first time since the Obama years that people are really having fun with Biden's public image, the operative argued. His team is really embracing that experience, the operative said. Good for morale, both internally and externally. It's funny to think that these Dark Brandon memes that are being reposted by the deputy press secretary is helping the morale of the Biden team, who probably every time they open their Twitter account gets about 100 death threats and 20 pedophilia accusations. So I can understand how that might be good for morale. I do want to say, though, that while reading up on this section of the Dark Biden, lore, you could say, the amount of politicians who have actually commented on Dark Biden from an ideological perspective, or meme historians that have commented on the story, is bizarre and just shows how much attention this political meme has gotten. Here's just one example, and this is a quote from the Daily Beast, a serious political publication. Don Caldwell, the general manager of meme tracking website Know Your Meme. Let me say that again. The general manager of meme tracking website Know Your Meme. We truly live in the 21st century. It's revealed that he's pulling the strings behind the scenes and that everything's going to plan. Sometimes it's that he's appearing to be senile and he's actually completely with it. And then here's another one, a House Democratic communications director who was granted anonymity to speak candidly. Imagine having to ask to speak anonymously because you don't want to get in trouble for your statement on the Dark Brandon meme. Compare Dark Brandon to The Onion's widely beloved series on Biden portraying, at the time, Vice President as a crazy uncle who rode motorcycles and washed his sports car shirtless on the lawn of the White House. The humor is that Biden is nothing like this image of him, said the staffer. In the case of Dark Brandon, it is a mockery of Republican branding, which is something I appreciate. Again, having serious politicians, communication directors, House Democratic leadership, any of these people commenting on this is, again, very strange. We live in the 21st century. So that's the first reason I think it's getting a lot of attention. It's this idea of this is the image of Biden, which is so contrary to how he is usually portrayed. The second reason I think it's getting a lot of fun out of it, and this is why I get a lot of fun out of it personally, is that we're used to seeing this type of like fascist kind of synthwave, maybe strongman type aesthetic portrayed on right-wing politicians, like I talked about before. Trump portrayed as Rambo, Trump portrayed as a strong boxer, Trump portrayed as the emperor of mankind, Trump portrayed as a powerful warrior and knight. There's a million portrayals of Trump as a strongman type figure on the internet. It's become something I've used to seeing, just Trump portrayed as a kind of almost Napoleon-esque figure here to reconquer the greatness of America. We've politically gotten used to seeing it. So seeing Joe Biden portrayed in that way and seeing how angry it makes a lot of the people who portray Trump in a similar fashion is quite funny to me. Not only because it pisses off the same people who hate Biden the most, but also it's funny to see those aesthetics, which are traditionally applied to right-wing political figures, applied to a moderate centrist type Democrat. It's quite funny. There's actually one example of it which has been co-opted by the Dark Brandoners. I don't know what you want to call them, the Dark Brandon oracles, the acolytes, the Dark Brandon acolytes. I like that one. Which is a picture of Dark Brandon, Joe Biden, sitting on a throne of machine guns surrounded by like skulls. And this is actually one of the most popular Dark Brandon memes I've seen. It's been in a lot of videos, been in a lot of images I've seen on the internet. That's not even a Dark Brandon meme. That's actually a piece of anti-Biden media that's been co-opted. It was originally made by a pro-Chinese Communist Party social media account in China to condemn Joe Biden, and has just been completely flipped around to be pro-Joe Biden because it's pretty cool to be on a throne of guns. And so it's quite funny to see Biden portrayed in this manner and us completely 180 a lot of this messaging, which was supposed to show Biden in a negative light. And leaning in, I think, a little bit to the idea that Joe Biden and the Democrats are these authoritarian dictators who are going to take all your guns away, take all your liberties away. He's going to raid you. He's going to take away all your freedoms. Just leaning into it a bit to piss off those same people as well. Pretty fun. I actually want to talk about that a little bit because, again, I can't believe we're talking about Dark Brandon internet memes right now. But the Daily Beast was also able to get a comment from Jessica Myrick, who's a professor at Penn State University that has studied the impact of memes. Okay, maybe I'm starting to believe Charlie Kirk. Maybe college is a waste of time. Also compared the Dark Brandon meme to a social media form of Schadenfreude, the idea of feeling pleasure from watching others' pain. Seeing Biden win means that conservatives and the right-wing people who so despise him are clearly suffering. It's almost like reveling in the pain that MAGA supporters must be feeling at Biden being so successful in the last couple of weeks. And let me talk about that. And I think this is the big reason it's taken hold with a lot of the pro-Biden camp and has really fired off in the last month, is because the last month has been probably the most successful month in the Biden administration's history so far. I mean, Biden has picked up a lot of notable wins. For example, in the last 20 to 30 days, and I'm going to just name a few of the achievements that Biden has gotten. Biden saw the House Senate pass a high-tech manufacturing measure investing $52 billion in domestic manufacturing of semiconductors. Manchin reached an agreement with Schumer on the reconciliation bills. Republicans took heat for voting down veterans legislation that helped veterans cover healthcare costs that were incurred upon them from, diseases and ailments that they got while serving in the military. That was only then later reversed after the Republican Party took a lot of heat from it by commentators like Jon Stewart and the general public, which is, they got hammered in the media, and the Democrats were able to kind of like march around as the hero of veterans in that instance. Gas prices have hit a summer low as they continue to plummet. The U.S. military took out a top Al-Qaeda leader in Afghanistan. Voters gave Democrats new hopes by overwhelmingly and surprisingly rejecting a ballot measure to ban abortion in Kansas. The unemployment rate matches a 50-year low. The U.S. measure, the U.S. report that more than 500,000 jobs were added in July, which is a strong indication that the economy is not going into recession. And 500,000 new jobs. The first major piece of bipartisan gun legislation passed in Congress in nearly 30 years. It was pretty moderate, but still, it was significant. And Trump was just raided by the FBI. To say that the Democrats have been picking up W's in the last few weeks would be a little bit of an understatement, to say the least. I would say that the Inflation Reduction Act was one of the big achievements of the Democrats, which purportedly will be reducing carbon emissions in the United States by 40% in the next 8 years by 2030. There's a lot of stuff in that I wish could have been stronger. I think the tax loopholes that that Kyrsten Sinema negotiate and fought hard to keep in. The Inflation Reduction Act actually had a provision to have 15% across the board, like corporations have to pay a 50% corporate tax rate. And Sinema fought really hard for there to be certain exemptions for certain type of like financing companies, and she won that fight. Senator Sanders also fought really hard to include the child tax credit, which was a massive achievement by the Democrats that was later gutted and stopped from being renewed by the Republicans. Tried to attach that to this bill, and that was shot down. It didn't even get close to passing. But it still is a massive achievement compared to the fact of what we thought we were going to get like a month ago. And so picking up all these W's, one after the other, after the other, after the other, I think culminated in the Dark Brandon meme really rising to its full potential. It was like a culmination of different factors. The meme becoming a thing in the first place, the irony of the meme, because, him being presented in that way, the kind of 180 on this type of fascisty strongman aesthetics being applied to right-wing politicians now being applied to a centrist politician, and finally, Brandon actually picking up a lot of W's in the last month. I think all these things culminated to produce an effect that led to, Dark Brandon rising, legitimately rising. So I think that's how Dark Brandon is where it is today. At the top of the meme heap, crushing it on Twitter, crushing it on Facebook, and leaving me experiencing a lovely form of Schadenfreude because I like to watch people get mad at me posting images of Joe Biden, like saying, "Your time's up, Jack. The malarkey ends now," and then he fires out laser eyes. So yeah, I would say, in a literal sense for the last month, Dark Brandon has been rising, and I hope I see him continue to rise. And I have to say that there's been a lot of comments from right-wing news sites and even a few left-wing news sites that this is the start of a rebranding effort on half of the Democrats. I will say that Biden doesn't really have a lot of online moments, like we said earlier, and so this could be a long-term online moment he has, but I doubt this is the start of a real rebranding campaign. I don't think on a mass scale, if Joe Biden run on being a strong man with laser eyes that destroys his political opponents, I think that wouldn't do well when you're running against Donald Trump, who is an actual strong man, not with laser eyes, but actually wants to destroy his political opponents and has a distaste for democracy and can't accept the fact that he lost an election. I think it's really just going to stay an internet meme. I don't think it's going to be part of a wider rebranding effort, but it is good to see the Democrats or in Joe Biden kind of on the front foot and having fun with this for once, when generally the Biden campaign has kept most of its messaging off of the internet. So seeing this kind of organically form and then adopted by some high-ranking officials in the Biden administration is pretty fun. I think this is awesome, and it's pissing off a lot of Republicans. Therefore, it's good. Morally correct. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can like this video, you can comment, help with the algorithm, and of course, subscribe. I'm going to be uploading more videos like this and more videos from here, where I'm based in Ukraine, in the near future. And if you want to support me, please go support me on Patreon. I'm going to be doing a general relaunch of that in the very near future, where you're going to see a lot of behind-the-scenes videos and photos of me on the ground in Ukraine. Thank you so much for watching.